I'll just give it another few seconds for people to log in. All right, I might make a start. I hope we have a few more people log in, but welcome to the Wine Tree Mentor Program Fireside Chat for November 2024. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people here in Melbourne, where I am today. They're the traditional custodians on the land from which I'm giving this webinar, and I pay my respects to their elders past and present. I also like to pay my respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples across the country and where you're all residing today. My name's Angus Barnes and I'm the Executive Chair of the Wine Communicators of Australia, and together with our partners, Wine Australia, with Joe Hargraves, the University of Adelaide and Adelaide Business School with Armando Corsi, the ASVO with Chris Waters, Wiser with Liz Schoen, and we have two guest speakers, Mike Every from Vision Wine Partners and Rebecca Wetherill from Workplace Wellbeing South Australia. We'd like to welcome you all today here to this fireside chat. The aim of this chat is to give you a little bit of an understanding about where we are and where we're going, maybe to hear a little bit of feedback from you as participants, and also to have an opportunity to learn and have a presentation from both Mike Every to give a bit of a experience of being a mentor, and then Rebecca Wetherill, who's also going to do a fantastic presentation on wellbeing for us all here today. So maybe I might make a start and just talk a little bit about the Wine Communicators of Australia. Maybe I'll pause here and say, at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A button. Throughout the session, if you've got any questions or indeed any comments, feel free to type them in there. When we do the various presentations, there might be some questions that you would like to ask. Please feel free to type them in there. We'll try to answer them online, and if we can't answer them online, we'll get back to you as a group. This webinar or fireside chat will be recorded, and we'll put a copy of that on the Mentor Cloud site. So the WCA, if I can start, again, our aim is to be a preeminent organisation for professionals working in wine. We do that through our four pillars of engage, inspire, connect and educate. We do that through a number of different exercises, including our webinar programs, where we've just had a webinar, for example, on running an iconic wine event. Our next webinar happens to be on the 10th of December, and it's about communications in an adverse weather event, which sounds a bit bizarre, but believe me, having lived through flood and fire and COVID, smoke, it could be a very interesting discussion. And we've got a panel session in there. We also have a series of webinars once a month that starts next year. Again, we have wine lunches across the country. We had the Sydney Royal Wine Show lunch, the Adelaide Wine Show lunch, and excitingly for us, we are doing our first event with the Melbourne Royal Wine Show this very evening. Last week, we ran the Wine Communicator of Australia Wine Communicator of the Year Awards, which was a terrific event. We gave out 11 individual category awards, and then the overall winner of the Wine Communicator of the Year to Andrew Kayard, MW, who wrote the amazing book, The Australian Arc. We do run a number of events programs, and we also run, obviously, with our partners, this mentor program. What I'd like to say before I pass on is my view is the industry is tough right now. When it's tough, industry organisations such as the ones on the screens with you today are valuable and a good source of assistance, a good source of information, and I think we're always better together. So with that, why don't I introduce our partners, and I'm going to introduce Joe Hargraves from Wine Australia first. Over to you, Joe.
Great, thanks so much, Angus, and hi everybody. I'm coming to you from the lands of the Kaurna people from the Adelaide Plains. So really, Wine Australia invests a significant amount of effort and activities into people development across the sector, but we operate, I guess, quite broadly, and our three pillars, taking Angus's approach here, is we have a regulatory function for the wine industry. We have a marketing function with in-house teams in international markets, and we also fund research development, extension and adoption activities, and that's where a number of our people development programs sit. I really wanted to take this opportunity this afternoon, along with Chris Waters, who will talk to this shortly, about the announcement last Friday of the Rootlings Youth Network program. This was an initiative that was piloted in New South Wales and has been running there successfully for the last few years. We're really excited to continue that involvement and to expand this program nationally. It's a network for anybody under the age of 35 in the sector to join, and it will be supporting and fostering professional development and peer-to-peer networking activities. And Jenna Vaughan from the Hunter will be leading that as our national program coordinator. And I'll put a link to the website in the chat shortly. And the other thing I wanted to encourage you all to do is to connect with your regional associations. Wine Australia funds the Next Crop Regional Leadership Program. That will be run in 3 regions in 2025. We've been successfully running that in 2 regions over the last 4 to 5 years. I don't know yet what those regions will be. We've currently received applications, but we will be announcing those by the end of the year. But I do just encourage you to expand and make sure you've got those regional connections so you can see those programs being announced. And the other thing too, to alert you, is Future Leaders 2025 will be running. So those applications will open in February, and I'll put an email link for you to reach out if you'd like to be alerted when Future Leaders opens. And just finally, more broadly, I did want to alert you to the fact that Wine Australia currently has a consultation paper open at the moment on the National Vineyard Register project. Those consultations close very soon on the 30th of November, but I'll put a link to that information in the chat as well if that's something that you're interested in having a say on. So that's all from me. Thanks, Angus.
Excellent. Thanks, Jo. And again, I'm going to put my strong appreciation for the work that's done with the Next Crop or the Rootlings Conference. I had a small amount of involvement in my time in New South Wales, and it was excellent. And the person they've chosen to work with the program is also excellent. So I'm very excited about that, and I think it's a great initiative. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce, for those of you who haven't met, Dr. Armando Corsi from the University of Adelaide and Adelaide Business School. Armando, over to you.
Thank you very much, Angus, and welcome everyone to this fireside chat. I'm proud to say that we have been the co-founder of the Wine Industry Mentor Program now back in 2019 with Wine Communicators of Australia, a program that then we've been lucky to bring other partners on board, such as ASVO, Wine Australia, and Wine Industry Supplier Association, WISA. At the University of Adelaide, we are proud that we are the only university in Australia and only one of the 2 in the world where business about wine taught in a AACSB accredited business school is combined with the knowledge in viticulture and enology from the world-renowned Wade campus. Our motto is to support the sustainable growth of the wine sector, and we do that taking again on what Angus and Joe has said before, working on 3 key pillars: the one on research, the one on education, and third on industry engagement. At the moment, in terms of research, there are probably 3-4 key line of research that we're working on, again, together with our colleagues in the School of Agriculture, Food and Wine and the Australian Wine Research Institute. Probably the biggest one at the moment is around low and no alcohol and mid-alcohol wines. Then we have a second line of research around emerging and gene-edited grape varieties. A third line of research around alternative packaging, from cans to bag-in-box to PET recycled flat bottles, pouches, etc., etc. And the fourth line of research around portable photovoltaic panels for the wine sector. In particular, myself and my team, we are specifically looking at consumer responses and how wineries can improve their understanding of what they can communicate to consumers when it comes to all these different sort of innovations in the wine sector. When it comes to the pillars of education, of course, at the moment, our offering is at specifically the postgraduate level through a graduate certificate, graduate diploma, and a Master of Wine Business. You might have heard, however, that the University of Adelaide will soon merge with the University of South Australia, and in January 2026, the two universities will become one with a new banner, the new name, which will become Adelaide University. And at that moment, the Master of Wine Business will stop, and we will launch a new Master of Wine and Food Business, with the idea of keeping, of course, wine at the center of our activities, but at the same time acknowledging the fact that we can keep wine at the center of what we do, but also bringing together all the other food, tourism industries that rotate around wine. Lastly, when it comes to industry engagement, of course, the collaboration with WCA, ASVO, Wine Australia, WISA is the proof of what we're doing here. We are also part of a global network of 12 great wine capitals in collaboration as well with Primary Industry Region South Australia, South Australian Tourism Commission, and the South Australian Wine Industry Association. So we're also having a lot of activities which include an outbound knowledge exchange program and a few executive education programs, and another executive program in conjunction with Wine Grape Council of SA. So I think there are multiple ways in which we can collaborate or be part of our programs or research opportunities, or be one of our students. And I look forward, if you have any question, to engage with us as soon as possible.
Thank you, Armando. You may note that in the chat boxes at the below the screen, a number of links have been put in there. So the links to the Rootling groups, the link to express interest in the Future Leaders program, and also the National Vine Register. It now gives me great pleasure to introduce you again to Chris Waters from the ASVO. Over to you, Chris.
Thanks, Angus. Well, the mentor program is really a key element of the ASVO's strategic plan. Look at it delivering connection and community and professional growth. It'd be remiss of me not to have some pillars to talk to as well, and they are that community pillar that I think we all need to support one another. It's the networks that help us get along and open doors, as you've probably found as part of the mentor program. We also talk about knowledge and continuous learning, and there's a number of things we do there with not just the journal, but the various ways that we try and take the research community and spread that news and those innovations and the new ways of doing things, or to consider, to think about out into industry. And of course, there's the professional development that we want to actually keep people moving forward and building their skill sets. I guess I hope you've enjoyed the mentor program so far and built some of those lasting connections. Many participants share that they stay in touch with their mentor or their mentee for years to come. But we're getting closer, I guess, towards the end, and you might be scratching your head and wondering, what happens once the program wraps up. Well, I want to encourage you that if you haven't already, get involved in the associations. that are here, the one that best suits your interests and aspirations. ASVO, we have tiered membership that keeps costs low for early career, and of course rises up as you get more established. But I really urge you to get involved. There are opportunities to develop yourself on committees and boards and to build those next lot of skills. Now, unfortunately, I'm going third, and Jo has stolen a lot of my thunder already, but I'm really glad she shared the news about the route links. It's a really great initiative, and thanks to Wine Australia's support and funding, this program is now open to young professionals across all the sectors of the wine industry. We hope to build those networks and to sharpen the skills. And as Jo said, we've got that link in the chat. But wait, there's more. We are also introducing early in the new year 3 new scholarships. And these are for projects or professional development. And I can't say too much about these yet, but they'll provide a great opportunity and to give you support for a project or professional development. Look, stay tuned, more details to come. It looks like you're going to have to somehow keep attuned to what's going on even through vintage, because they'll be opening roughly the same sort of times. There's so many opportunities. It's a good time in some ways to be in the industry. Thanks, Angus.
Good. Thank you, Chris. And the last of our partners, but by no means the least, is Wiser, and representing Wiser today is Vice President Liz Schoen. Liz.
Thank you very much. And it's really good to be here. So I'm also a participant in the mentor program for my 3rd year in a row this year, and many of our committee members have been in the past as well. So it's very important to Wiser. So what is Wiser? We're the Wine Industry Suppliers Association. We're a membership organisation who've been around for about 20 years. So we're the peak body for businesses who supply goods and services to the wine, grape and wine producing sector. Our members include viticultural and winemaking goods and services, ag tech, software, oak, glass and cork manufacturers and distributors, engineering companies, logistics and professional services. And we also do have wineries that are members, as they are obviously a big part of the supply chain too. We foster collaboration through events like the Wine Industry Impact Awards. So we celebrated the 2024 winners at the gala dinner we held a few weeks ago at the National Wine Centre. We were really pleased with the level of interest and enthusiasm from all our nominees, and believe that the people who were the finalists and winners really represent our industry's greatest competitive advantage. So our capacity to innovate, to improve, to adapt to challenging conditions is really what makes our sector so resilient, and that's what we celebrated at the dinner. I do encourage you to have a look at what the award recipients put forward as their achievements and take inspiration from it. And it's all available to read on our website if you go to the awards tab, and that's wiser.org.au. So for you as the future of the sector, we offer opportunities to network with leaders, showcase new ideas, engage in discussions that shape our industry's direction. And just, exactly what Chris was just saying there about getting involved. We actually have our AGM in January, and committee positions are going to be available for members. So you do have to be a member. So if you're not a member, but you are involved in a part of the supply chain that I maybe just mentioned, just more than happy for you to reach out to me. So find me on LinkedIn, Liz Schoen, connect and send me a note. And we really encourage you to see Wiser, regardless of your level of involvement with us, as your industry partner. We're really proud to be part of the mentor program, and I love the partnership that it is all about getting together and supporting each other. So it's also about how we can support you as you grow in the industry. So thank you, and I hope to see many of you contributing to your talents to Wiser soon.
Excellent. Thank you, Liz. And thank you all again. It's I think it's truly a great thing that we have this partnership across the whole of the industry, working together to build a mentor program that hopefully is helpful to you and helpful to the industry in general. along those lines, I thought it would be good to hear from a mentor who's been involved in this program, but also has a great deal of experience. And I'm delighted to say that Mike Every has agreed to join us on screen and to talk a little bit about his experience. So Mike is I guess I'm going to call him someone with a vast experience in the wine industry right across Australia. He runs or co-runs his own business called Vision Wine Partners now, but has a tremendous amount of background and experience in the wine industry, mainly in the sort of that general management, sales, marketing side. But maybe I'll pass across to Mike and ask him to talk a little bit about your background, but also your experience in mentoring and the mentor program, both this one and more in general. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks, Angus. Hi, everybody. Mike Every is my name. I guess to take Angus's perspective, I started in the industry in a retail liquor store in the North Shore of Sydney because I simply didn't know what I wanted to do. And the rest is history. I've worked with big companies, Swift and Moore. I was with Peter Lehman for 15 years before the takeover. And as Angus said, you know, retail, sales, marketing, general management, and director of sales for Peter Lehman in the last role. So I now head up or co-found a business called Vision Wine Partners with my business partner, Nick Blair, ex-Pernod Ricard. And we've been going for about 8 or 9 years. I guess the question for most people is, why do we do the mentoring thing? Well, for me, it's quite simple. It's actually an opportunity to give back the industry that's provided me with not only a vocation, but a passion for the last 40 odd years. And yes, I am that old. So it allows me to actually share my passion with other people in all facets of sales, marketing, production, wineries, branding, route to market, the whole box and dice. And I guess this year is like no different. And my mentee is a delightful man, has come along with a few challenges. And I guess from that perspective, the best thing you can do as a mentor is actually understand where that person's frustrations or where they want to go in their career, what they like, what they don't like, all those sort of factors, where they're struggling in the business. And I have to say, we did that quite early in the piece, and we set down a few points to work together. But also the question we asked is, you know, what did Adam want to get from the mentor session? And we were quite clear on coming up with 5 things that we wanted to achieve together. And all of those weren't business. And I made a point of at least 2 of those objectives were personal. And that was sort of, I think, Adam, it's fair to say that it took you back and you weren't realizing that. But I think it's fair to say having that work-life balance, particularly in these tough times, and I'm sure that everyone's having tough times as well, it's really important to have that work-life balance. So we engaged and we embarked on a little bit of a journey. I'd like to think that I've added value to Adam's way he's working, the way he's now managing the people around him in his business, but also formalizing that process of actually managing his expectations for the people that work for him and also work above him. So above and below, one could say. So I guess, you know, it's really important. I think this is my 4th or 5th year, Angus, I'm not quite sure. And each year has actually provided me with a challenge because they've come from a different part of the business. So I think the first one was product related. The second one was a winery. The third one was a sales rep. And the 4th one is now a sales and marketing manager. So it's allowed me to actually get my experience back to where it needs to be, which is delightful. So thank you for the opportunity. And I think it's, you know, really important as a mentor, you know, it's really the people that make this industry. And a lot of my relationships over the last 40 years, and I've known Angus for what, now 700 years.
That's right.
You know, we go back a while and we can still look at each other, smile and shake hands and, you know, move on. And it's just a delightful industry. And I implore you to be a part of it for the future. So thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike. And again, I think they were wise words. Again, I also feel as though I'm at the stage in my career where giving back it's not only something I feel I could and should do, but it's something that gives me great satisfaction. And again, I think programs like this and indeed Future Leaders Program, Rootlings, a number of them, I think are exceptional opportunities for us who've probably been fortunate to work through the good and maybe some of the bad times of the industry, but give a chance to pass on our experience and maybe a little bit of guidance for people going through. So thank you, Mike. Part of these fireside chats is about providing some education or maybe giving you a chance to think about something in a different way. And one of the great things about having a group of partners such as ours and inclusive of the Wine Communicators Board is that they get to meet a lot of lovely people and people who've got great experience. And we've got the opportunity to speak to one such person right now. So I'm going to introduce you to Rebecca Wetherell, and Rebecca is the founder of an organisation called Workplace Wellbeing South Australia. Rebecca is an expert in her field and is going to give us a little bit of a talk on wellbeing. And rather than me say anything more, why don't I pass directly on to you, Rebecca?
Thank you, Angus, and hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me to come on to your Fireside chat. I'm really keen to also add to what Angus has said and let you know that I've been in the wine industry myself for about 20 years before starting this business about 4 years ago. So I started my wine journey last century, so that makes me feel quite old. But in 1999, I started at the beautiful Yalumba Winery in the Barossa. And I have also worked with Torbreck in the Barossa, Chalk Hill in McLaren Vale, and I've also worked with Vine Health. So I'm very passionate about the wine industry, and now I'm very fortunate in that I can still work with industry and organisations. I've been doing some projects with Barossa Australia and about to do some workshops with Riverland Wine as well to talk about wellbeing. So my purpose here today is to share with you a little bit around the research. So what does the science say around wellbeing? Because there's been a lot of science in the last 20 years. So in my business, I use science and how I practically apply what we know to look after our wellbeing. So I've actually put it together a little bit of a slide deck for you. So I'm going to share that with you now on the screen, hoping that you can all see that. I'm just going to go. Yes, Angus has given me the thumbs up. Fantastic. All right. So we don't have very long. I'm going to get through all this fairly quickly, but I'm very happy to share this slide deck with you. And so that'll be made available. And of course, I'm available anytime if you have further questions. So in this little chat today, I'm really wanting to focus on your own levels of wellbeing and what you can do to look after yourself. So I share this photo in a lot of my workshops. This is actually a dugout. I don't know how many of you may have been to Coober Pedy, but this is actually a photo of me. I'm the little girl sitting on the lounge there, and it's a dugout with my family, and this is in 1981. So I often share that because people who have been to Coober Pedy or know about it know that it's a pretty interesting place to grow up, and I had a very interesting childhood living underground. Those eagle eyes might see in that bottom corner a little wine rack. My dad was very fond of wine, and you might even see the Darrenberg stripe there on one of the bottles. He used to think he was quite funny, joking around that it was actually us humans who lived underground in the cellar with the wine. It certainly influenced my love of the wine industry too. But the reason I do share this image is that hopefully it instills a bit of context, or perhaps people working out in their own minds that living in these conditions sort of led me to develop a pretty good level of resilience. But what I found out later in life, and in fact I was working in hospitality in 2013, was that even though I developed such good levels of resilience, it wasn't able to protect me from experiencing something that we now all know as burnout. So the World Health Organization only recognized burnout in about 2019. This was well before we understood what burnout was. So I have developed a very keen interest in understanding how I can look after myself, and then also how I can help others to look after themselves. Just really quickly, and we're not going to cover this today, I've actually written a couple of articles for the Australian Wine Business Magazine. Please don't compare me to Katie Spain at all, but I've written a couple of articles really around what organisations or workplaces can do to support the wellbeing of employees, because there was some legislation that came into effect this year across Australia that requires organisations to protect the psychological health of their employees. So there is a duty of care now to assess and address things called psychosocial hazards in the workplace. So I've heard a lot of the conversation today around having those 3 pillars, and really for a healthy workplace, again, they're looking at having 3 pillars in place. So that's really around that, the protection mechanism, how to prevent harm, psychological harm, and also how you can promote wellbeing in the workplace. And one of the ways to do that is really to understand your own levels of wellbeing, and then what actions you can take to not only maintain or support your own wellbeing, but maybe looking out for signs in others and helping them along their journey as well. So just quickly, here's a little self-promotion, but of the latest WBM mag, I've got an article in there, so you can pick that up. All of this obviously can be shared in the resource page on my website. And Great Grower Winemaker early this year in the April edition did an article on the work that I had been doing with Barossa Australia, grape growers and wineries there. So that was featured in there. And if anyone is listening to the Healthy Minds, Healthy Vines podcast, second series, I am featured in there as well, chatting alongside Steve Schiller from the Barossa Valley. So some resources there that you might like to dig into at your leisure. I did put this little self-reflection scale, and I'd encourage you to take a moment, perhaps after this webinar, just to have a little think. You know, if you're looking at a scale, if 1 is surviving and 10 is thriving, where are you sitting at the moment on that scale? Just to take a moment and get some awareness around how you might be feeling and functioning. We know that struggle is very normal. It's a normal part of life, and that our well-being ebbs and flows depending on what's happening around us and those choices that we're making. I've got a little gift for you at the end of the slide, and obviously I will share that with you on email. But just to understand that struggle is normal, but what can we do about it? And also that this word of well-being doesn't mean that we have to be happy all the time or only thinking positive thoughts. It certainly isn't about never feeling sad or angry or frustrated or any of those other emotions. That's a very normal part of the human experience. It's certainly not about avoiding struggles, and it's definitely not about never having a mental illness. And I want to share with you it is about, caring for your wellbeing will give you the tools and resources that help you to navigate those tough times. So if I think about and reflect on that time back in 2013 when I experienced professional burnout, it was during a period of when I definitely didn't have those skills or even know about where my levels of wellbeing were sitting or how I could care for them. So it's very important that we do prioritise those actions that are going to help us care for our wellbeing. Just want to share with you a continuum. So this is the Mental Health Dual Continuum by Professor Corey Keyes. So if we're thinking about a continuum and moving or a sliding scale, we can be well, and then there can be things that happen in our lives and those choices that we're making, so we can move to unwell. And similarly, if we are unwell, we can certainly move back to well. So it's definitely a moving continuum. And what we know about this is talking about illness, but the same applies for our well-being. So we can have these high levels of well-being, and they can dip down to low levels of well-being. And similarly, it can move up and down depending on the actions you're taking and depending what is going on in your world. we see these 4 quadrants here, and what we know from some research is that if we are sitting in that bottom right quadrant, this is a term used in positive psychology called languishing. That means we have lower levels of well-being. We might not be having an illness as such, but we have these lower levels of well-being. If we sit in that languishing quadrant, we are 8 times more likely to develop a mental illness. So it's very much that preventative approach by keeping our levels of well-being above the line. And similarly, if we have a mental illness and we maintain or have those high levels of well-being, we can be flourishing with that mental illness, and we are 7 times more likely to develop to recover from an illness. Oops. Apologies. All right. So most importantly, I guess, and this is something that I had to discover for myself, is that reflection piece of what do low levels of well-being look like for me. They might be similar to other people in your family or friendship group or at work, but really it's important to take some time to reflect and to discover or understand what are those early signs of low levels of well-being. You know, it might be getting a little bit frustrated or short-tempered, or you might notice that you're perhaps not sleeping as well or ruminating on some thoughts. Or similarly, in my instance, it's often when I am, for whatever reason, quite clumsy. You know, I've got to know those earlier signs, I guess, so that I can apply some of those wellbeing principles to help support me. We talk about, well, what actions do you take? I'm sure you already have those actions that you do put in place. Maybe it's to get out and go for a walk or to connect with friends. They're all great actions to take. But what else could you take? And we know that there's a lot of science now, 20 years of science. And in the work that I do, I share the PERMA wellbeing model. So PERMA is an acronym for the 6 pillars that really support our levels of well-being. So P is for positive emotions. So that's the genuine, the heartfelt emotions that you might find in your day. E is for engagement, really feeling engaged in the work that you're doing. R is for relationships. We know that this is essential and probably the most important contributor to your well-being is those quality relationships. So carving out time and creating those quality relationships are key. M is for meaning, finding meaningful work or finding meaning in the work that you're doing. It contributes towards well-being, and so does those feelings of accomplishment, being able to achieve those things that you set out to do, the learning. You're probably doing this as part of the program, you know, a sense of achievement, working with your mentor in your own growth. And H is for health. So this is both your physical health, your mental health, and I also include financial health in here. We know at the moment, cost of living is extremely high. How are you managing your finances? Because obviously that can cause a lot of stress to your life as well. So it's a combination of all of those 6 factors that contribute to our well-being. It's not one or the other. It's certainly a balance of all. So it's really important to understand that when you notice those lower levels of well-being or those signposts alerting you to perhaps that your levels have dropped, what can you do? And it might not just be in one particular area. There might be some of those 6 areas that you need to look at. Of course, it's great to understand what the PERMA framework is, that it is important to look after your well-being, but the key here is to actually take some action. So I have shared this with so many of my workshop participants, and in fact, when I did the grower workshops last year, I talked to about 70 growers in the Barossa, and a lot of the feedback was that this was a really helpful tool for them. So it's called habit stacking. Some of you may have heard of James Clear or read the book Atomic Habits. And it's one small way that you can start to implement some of your well-being habits or some smaller habits. So the advice is to start small, and it's really to stack or add a new habit onto an existing one. So if you are choosing to maybe take some more mindful breaths during the day to help regulate your nervous system, what can you do? When could you take those extra breaths or slow some deep breathing? So it could be after I make my coffee, I will take 3 slow breaths. Or after I sit at my desk, every time I will take 3 slow, deep breaths. Whatever it might be that works for you. But habit stacking is definitely one way that you can start to implement a small habit into your day. And lastly, I just want to share some of those things that actually personally had helped me. So one of those things was really to have made some small changes to my daily routine, to my lifestyle. So it was taking the science behind this, the behavior or change of behavior, and starting really small. It was no good for me to, again, we talk about, I know it's an analogy we use a lot around, increasing fitness and going out for a marathon run. We start small. But I can't emphasize enough how important it is to make those small changes. So whether it's putting, a boundary around when you close your laptop or sign off for work, if you can do that 10 minutes earlier than what you would normally, to give you more time at the end of your day to do those things that you need to be doing to look after your well-being, whatever small change it is for you. For me, it was really helpful to listen to some guided meditations, and I highly recommend. There's lots of great resources around. Insight Timer is a free resource that I highly recommend if you want to start to listen to guided meditations or breath work or some mindfulness. I prioritized sleep. Now, this was the quality and the quantity of sleep. I still like to think of myself as a bit of a sleep geek, but we know that there is so much research being done now around the importance of sleep. And one of my favorite sleep experts is I'll share it actually in the link. It's a TED Talk. I'll share those details with you later. Again, something that was really important for me is to reduce the alcohol consumption. Obviously, working in the wine industry and being in this environment, I did have a tendency to certainly enjoy wine most days or evenings with dinner, and certainly when I was a wine rep, there was a lot more wine to be consumed. But I realized that had a real impact on my sleep and the quality of my sleep. In fact, 1 glass of wine usually impacts quality by about 9%. And so I've been quite mindful around reducing my alcohol consumption there, obviously still enjoying it when I can. And the other thing that I did for myself was to really increase my activity outdoors, because nature is such a good place for us to be. And I got myself a little dog, Gus the Wonder Dog. So he used to take me for daily walks. So all of those things helped me to recover from burnout. There were a lot of other things too. I sought some professional help, and I actually changed my workplace and the way I worked. So they were some of the things that worked for me. So what we know about wellbeing, it is looking out for those signposts. So looking out for those smaller signs that you see in yourself and you might see in others, loved ones and colleagues around you, that those wellbeing levels have slipped below the line. We really want to focus energies on to getting them above the line. It is about taking small actions and it's weaving them into your daily routine. We know that there's, with the science, using the PERMA framework, we know that it's not everybody responds in the same way to the tools, or we call them interventions, but it's about developing your very own toolkit. So what works for you? And one way that you can do that is to take a wellbeing survey. So as a gift for you guys today, I have created a QR code and a special link to go on to or to log in online, and you've got the QR code there on your screen. This is open until probably the end of the year. And it's a confidential survey. So I would encourage you to take 10 minutes and take the survey. It's going to give you, or you can download a report. I don't get any of that information, that's just for you. But this report will give you some insights around maybe where your scores are, where your levels of wellbeing are currently sitting across the 6 contributing pillars, and it's also got a fantastic resource within there. It's going to ask if you would like to create your very own wellbeing action plan, and there are 200 evidence-based tools in that back end of the survey tool, and you can start to play around with some evidence-based actions that you might like to take and might help to support your wellbeing further. But I hope that has been very helpful for you today. My number is there and I am available anytime for a chat, and I do encourage you to take the survey. It's only going to take you 10 minutes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I will be taking the survey. I found that really interesting. I looked at the sort of what you talked about, the signposts, and for me, I find sleep is a very big signpost to me where my mental health is, and I also find that being outside walls, being able to walk on the coast or in the bush, is a massive positive impact for my well-being. And then I looked at your slides about habit stacking. And again, during COVID, there was quite a bit of, I guess, work done to help people who were being at home. And one of the things was about owning the morning. And I try to get to 10 o'clock in the morning and feel like I've achieved something. Now, on a Friday, that happens to be that I go for a walk around the headland at Manly with my friends and have a coffee, and probably it's a mini men's shed sort of, but it's something, right?
Yes.
And other days I need to stretch my calves for 6 minutes. Otherwise I become limp and I struggle to get out of bed in the morning. So it's just, sometimes it's just simple things like that. So thank you very much for that. And we'll share that with everyone.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I haven't seen any questions specifically, but if you've got any questions, you've got Rebecca's details. Feel free to reach out to her. I think that brings us close to the end of our fireside chat for today. So I did want to thank particularly Rebecca, but also Mike Every, and then my fellow partners in this program, Joe Hargraves from Wine Australia, Dr. Armando Corsi from University of Adelaide Business School, Chris Waters from ASVO, and Liz Schoen from WISER. We do have, and this is answering Jim's question, we do have a graduation ceremony, which you'll get an invite straight after this fireside chat, which will be at the same time, so 4:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on the 10th of December. So the 10th of December, the same time as a graduation ceremony. It will be a webinar, but it'll be much more about hearing back from you. So between now and then, we're going to ask a number of you to record a video of your experience with your mentor or mentee and send that back. And we put together a little bit of a reel last time, and that seemed to work quite well. We will ask you to fill in a survey of things that you got out of this program, things that you liked, things that we could do better, and that would be very good. I take on board the conversations about what happens after the 10th of December. And I really feel like we've got that stage where we've got some critical mass of both mentors and mentees, and we should start to work on an alumni type program. And again, I think we'll talk to our partners in the next couple of weeks and do something there. But I think there's definitely an opportunity. So again, thank you. I guess I would encourage you all to reach out to your mentors and mentees over the next couple of weeks. Have another session, have another 2 sessions. Come back to us if you've got any questions. Obviously, the 10th of December is only a date and time. It doesn't mean it's necessarily an end of your relationship with your mentor or mentee. And again, I've been a mentor and a coach in a number of programs, and I still reach out to my colleagues from time to time just to have a chat and see where they're at. So if there are no more questions, which again, I'm just having a look and I don't think there are a number of good comments in the chat section. We will make sure those links get out to you all. We'll put a copy of Rebecca's presentation and obviously including that link to the survey. Thank you all very much for your time. I hope you have gained something out of this experience, both today and indeed the One Street Mentor program in general. Thank you to my partners and look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks on the screen. Thanks all.